Next on Ncba's Cattleman to Cattleman.
We'll take a look at how the Public Lands Council is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Plus, we'll share some valuable production tips to help prepare your cattle for the winter.
And now, Ncba's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Hello and welcome to Ncba's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Kevin Ochsner. The recent Public Lands Council annual meeting marked a milestone, 50 years of advocating on behalf of cattle producers who hold public lands grazing permits. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Lane Nordland has a look at how the PLC celebrated this historic occasion.
Since 1968, the Public Lands Council has been a voice for the more than 22,000 public lands ranchers across the nation. And recently, cattle, along with sheep producers, gathered in Park City, Utah for the Public Lands Council's annual meeting. But the group also celebrated their 50th anniversary.
Well, you know, I think looking around this room and talking to the different past leaders and current leaders of the Public Lands Council that have made the trip here to Park City this week speaks volumes about what we're here to celebrate. The stories that people are exchanging and the memories they're catching up on and the battles we've all fought together over the last 50 years really tells a tale of how this industry has survived a real onslaught of environmental activism and legislation and a wholesale shift in how we manage public lands in the West.
The Public Lands Council works in coordination with state PLC affiliates across the West to advocate and educate the public and elected officials on the importance of the multi-use of our public lands.
We have every problem that every private property rancher has, in addition to a whole nother stack of them. And we tend to work on those first, from the Endangered Species Act, clean water. We're an easy target, if you will, because we're viewed as public land that everybody comes out and enjoys and participates in. We need the support of all ranchers and of all of the sectors, because if we will see it first, and if we can head that off and we can make some changes ahead of time, it won't snowball, and 20 years down the road we're not having the same argument on the national level. We can stop it when it's at a more regional western level, and it won't progress.
That's why we do this, is for the younger generation. I have 7 generations on our ranch. We settled our ranch in 1863. It's really important that we protect what we've got, and I think that's my goal, is to try to protect our ability to graze cattle and do business on public lands, which without the public lands, a ranch like ours just could not exist.
The PLC has fought many battles on Capitol Hill over the past 5 decades for its members. The organization actually got its start in Washington, D.C. at the historic Old Ebbitt Grill when ranchers Gene Etchart of Montana and Harry Lee of New Mexico saw the need for more advocacy for public lands ranchers in the West.
You know, Gene Etchart was instrumental. Simply would not have happened without his recognition of the need for an organization, along with counterpart from New Mexico. I know they saw the problems of the day and they were addressing those immediate problems, but I have to believe that Gene and Harry Lee from New Mexico had a vision of the future of public land grazing and really saw that this was something that needed to be done, not for 1 year or 2 to solve an immediate issue, but to build an organization that could sustain public land livestock grazing in the West for many years to come.
If you're not organized, given how few of us there are, we represent a lot of real estate, but there's not very many of us. And if we're not organized during those tough times and when the good times come along, you're not organized enough to move the needle, to make a difference. And the fact that for 50 years, cattle and the sheep industry, the state associations, everybody affiliated with them have been working on what are the impediments to surviving. We've had big victories, little victories, big losses, and some smaller losses. But I can tell you that the Western livestock industry would not be what it is today if it hadn't been for all the good work that was done by this organization.
With over 200 public lands ranchers and supporters attending the 50th anniversary event, you could feel the pride that these ranchers have, along with the appreciation they hold for the organization that has been a powerful voice for them in Washington, D.C. for 5 decades. Reporting for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, I'm Lane Nordland.
For more information on the issues that impact federal lands and the ranchers that graze there, be sure to visit the website publiclandscouncil.org. Well, fall is officially here, which means now is the perfect time for producers to make management decisions that will have an impact on the health, productivity, and profitability of their herds during the winter months. Joining us now with more on this topic is Dr. Jason Ahola, a beef production systems professor here at Colorado State University. Jason, why don't you tell us about some of the key challenges producers face as we prepare for winter months?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is to recognize the importance of winter management on fertility. And I kind of see that in 2 different ways. One of them is your commercial cow herd and generally trying to manage them so that they're going to come out of winter with appropriate body condition score. We try to target a 6 body condition on a first calf heifer, probably a 5 body condition on a mature cow. And one of the things I think we should consider is taking those cows into winter and through the winter, maybe even sorting them based on body condition. It's not typically done. I think a lot of producers just kind of put them in one big group and manage the average. But in reality, probably half are underfed and half are overfed. So I think that's one thing, is to think about how to manage your cows nutritionally. And the other piece is those heifer calves that you just weaned, and thinking through how do you need to manage those heifers to get them in a way that they're going to be able to be bred next spring. And I think a big piece of that is doing the math and figuring out what they need to weigh in the spring, what they weigh now, and how you're going to get there, and what that rate of gain looks like it needs to be over the course of the winter.
So are there some specific steps that we can be taking right now to position ourselves and our cattle for success?
Yeah, I think one good thing to consider is going into the fall, it's a pretty common opportunity to take advantage of low quality and cheaper feedstuffs. So corn stalks or wheat stubble or some other kind of maybe native range or dry land or some other stockpiled forage that's a little lower quality but cheaper, and considering providing a crude protein supplement so that you can kind of increase their intake. Even though the forage is low quality, there's a lot of energy there, and if you can provide enough protein for them, they can consume enough so that they therefore can get enough energy, get enough intake, and actually maintain that body condition score in through the winter.
And that's especially important for years like this year, where so many of us are facing higher priced hay, right?
Yeah, certainly. It's one of the lowest years on record for acres of hay that has been harvested, and the hay price has just not gone down. We've got some areas of drought, but hay has just kind of stayed up there. Any other kind of forages as well, wheat straw and corn stalks, and so those are the feedstuffs we're looking at, and even this year they're pretty expensive. So anything we can do to kind of extend our grazing season or extend our period of feeding low quality forage, we should take advantage of it.
So I want to talk to you about some research that you've been doing at my alma mater, Colorado State University, and I understand you've done some work relative to trying to understand how the weaning period can actually make an impact or have an impact on the marbling of fat cattle. Tell us, first of all, why is that important to our industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things we've recognized is we're probably still not providing consumers enough prime and upper 2/3 and maybe even choice beef. So marbling is a bit still short in supply. And so we often focus a lot of that effort around feed yards and close to the harvest time when we can try to increase the amount of marbling and percent that grade choice. But the reality of it is we've also realized there's a big window around weaning that looks like it influences this. And so we actually did a study here, at least looking through the literature and all the research that's been done all across the country, and really anything you could imagine that might be influencing what marbling might be. And the interesting thing is about 60 days around weaning, there's a time when fat cells or adipocytes are either increasing in number or increasing in size at a very slight amount, and that we can influence that during that period of time.
So tell me more. I mean, what are the kinds of things we can do as producers to actually change that outcome during the weaning process?
Yeah, so it's anything from stress to how we manage them. So the stress is going to cover a lot of different things. That's simply the method that you use of weaning, abrupt weaning, or maybe a fence line weaning or something like that. There's not a lot of great data that suggests one of those is better than the other on marbling, but we do know that stress in general is going to inhibit the likelihood of marbling. So the weaning method's a big one. Trace mineral status of calves at the weaning time frame, if they've been vaccinated or not, particularly in a preconditioning program. So again, there's maybe not hard data that says specifically each one of those influences marbling, but we know that stress will influence it. There are a few things that have been shown to be very clear. One of these is probably the window may be past, but if a producer is considering early weaning versus normal weaning, and this is weaning maybe at 4 months of age, there's pretty good evidence that early weaning can increase marbling versus normal weaning. And then also the energy density of the diet in a calf around the time of weaning, like maybe even a creep feed, or shortly after weaning, particularly in those early weaned calves. It looks like you can influence their marbling potential. And then there's a few other ones that are pretty kind of common knowledge. Castrating a calf, especially earlier in life, will increase the likelihood of marbling. Getting them on feed in a feed yard sooner in life will help with that. And then also not being too aggressive in implanting of calves. So if you implant with 2 or more implants during their lifetime, you may have a negative consequence on end product marbling and quality. So there's a number of things also that have not necessarily been shown or proven to be influential, but we tend to just think about it, just reconsider anything you're doing around the time of weaning and what influence that might have on marbling, especially if you're retaining ownership or your calves are going to likely provide a high quality product.
Well, it's fascinating to me to just learn everything from, the research that's been done in terms of fetal programming to this research relative to what's going on at weaning, and recognizing how much consequence and influence that has throughout that whole lifetime of that animal.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thanks for coming and joining us today, Jason.
Sure.
Ncba is proud to work with experts like Dr. Ahola and so many others around the country to provide you the latest and most cutting-edge production research and information to keep your operations profitable. Visit our website, that's ncba.org, and look under the Producers tab for the latest educational information. Still ahead on Ncba's Cattleman to Cattleman, we've got valuable tips on marketing cattle in the Southeast. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The 2019 Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba Trade Show is set for the Big Easy, New Orleans, Louisiana. It's the cattle industry's biggest convention with education, networking, and fun. Plus, you can check out the huge Ncba Trade Show, outstanding entertainment, and much more. So let's go to New Orleans for the 2019 Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba Trade Show, January 30th through February 1st. Details at ncba.org.
What does it mean to be dependable? It means you do what you say you'll do time and time again. Because performance isn't optional, and your task is essential. For over 95 years, we have proven ourselves to be the most dependable choice. That's why the cattlemen of this great nation trust Ritchie to provide fresh water on demand. Ritchie, proud to be a partner to the American cattlemen since 1921.
On most operations, how much profit you make depends largely on your ability to market your calves. Many factors can go into this decision, including the region of the country where you live. We turn to Cattleman reporter Kate Maher for insights on the challenges and opportunities of marketing cattle in the Southeast. Kate?
Thanks, Kevin. You know, marketing cattle is a challenge for producers everywhere, but especially here in the Southeast. Today, we're talking with Jason Carter, who's the executive director of the Virginia Cattlemen's Association. Jason, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Today you were talking to a group of producers at the Stockmanship and Stewardship event about some of the unique challenges of marketing cattle in the Southeast. What are those challenges?
Well, the Southeast represents about a third or 40% of the cattle herd in the United States, but some of the challenges that we have are distance from traditional feedlot centers in the Midwest. We also have a challenge of a wide genetic and phenotypic diversity in our cattle. From Virginia to Florida over to the Louisiana and even in East Texas, the climate changes the kind of cattle that we can breed and the kind of cattle that are profitable within our greater region.
But Southeast producers have a lot to offer the beef industry in terms of their cattle. What can they kind of do? What kind of strategies can they think about before they sell their calves?
Well, I think one of the things that's most important is that people who sell cattle need to think like folks who buy cattle. There are added value components to cattle that even small producers like we have in the Southeast that typically market only 20 to 30 head a year can add to their herds, such as weaning, preconditioning, understanding what breed, genotype and phenotypes are most desirable for the market and the buyers in your area, understanding how weigh-ups and how delivery of cattle affects quality when they get to the end point. Those are all things that are real important as producers that you do research into so that you better understand how our markets work, but also what truly does add value to your cattle.
And that's a good point. At the end of the day, no matter how many head of cattle you have, whether it's 1 or 1,000, you're producing beef for consumers.
That's right. You are producing beef for consumers no matter where you are in the United States. And we have a good fortune in the Southeast of having great genetics available to us across our region. And we have a lot of resources to make good quality cattle that do wind up on consumers' plates, both here and around the world.
What are some of the trends that you're seeing here with producers in the Southeast and maybe some of the markets here in the Southeast?
In the Southeast, absolutely, the amount of people that devote time to weaning and preconditioning of cattle with good health programs behind them so that they stay healthy and they perform well on feedlots, that's been probably one of the most important trends that we've recognized positively in southeastern cattle. The genetic variability due to growing seasons and markets still is in place, but weaning and preconditioning of calves and the fact that that's grown and the access to video sales, tele-auction sales, calf pool sales, these are all signs that higher quality management is being rewarded.
And how can the Virginia Cattlemen's Association maybe help producers in Virginia and or the Southeast and other cattle associations around?
Well, our Cattlemen's Association has a 70-year history of being an advocate of feeder cattle marketing as well as for our industry. So in addition to providing advocacy to continue to farm and education for producers to grow their management, we also do work very intently in the feeder cattle marketing world to provide opportunities for people to work together in calf pool situations through branded programs that we've created, working with the Virginia Department of Agriculture to provide grading, and then working with video and tele-auction technology so that we expand every day the number of buyers exposed to our cattle.
You know, I can't let you go with talking about membership in an association like the Virginia Cattlemen's Association because you guys do great work. How can producers get involved, and why would you encourage producers to get involved in the Virginia Cattlemen's Association or their state cattlemen's association if they're not from Virginia?
Well, the best way to get information is to be part of a camaraderie of vocationally interested people just like you. We encourage people at Virginia Cattlemen's Association to be a member of a local group, then a state level group, and then hopefully Ncba as well, because our strength is in working collectively and sharing information on all three levels. And we feel like at the state association that we have a lot to offer, and we feel like at the national level Ncba does as well.
Jason, thanks for your insights today. Ncba has certainly enjoyed a really great partnership with Virginia Cattlemen's Association. Thank you.
Well, thank you as well.
Kevin, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Kate. Why not join Jason Carter and others from the Virginia Cattlemen in the fight for common sense policies and against regulatory efforts that threaten the future of our beef cattle industry? Become an Ncba member today. You'll also receive the members-only Beltway Beef newsletter, a weekly update straight from Washington, D.C. that gives you the latest information on the key policy initiatives that'll impact your business. Just call 1-866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. Still to come on Cattleman to Cattleman, we'll visit an award-winning ranch in Hawaii that is improving the land for future generations. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, I'm Bobby Hebert of Cajun Cannon from the New Orleans Saints. Come on down to the Big Easy for the 2019 Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba Trade Show. It'll be the biggest and the best you've ever seen. There'll be great food, fun, and outstanding music from country music duo Big and Rich. So join me and let's go to New Orleans January the 30th to February the 1st. Find out more at beefusa.org.
Welcome back. Every day, cattlemen and women care for their land and their animals because they're committed to leaving what they have better than they found it. We're continuing our series celebrating the 2018 regional winners of the Environmental Stewardship Award. Let's take you to Hawaii to see the Region 6 award winner.
Just after daybreak, Greg Friel is riding through the cattle on the slopes of Haleakala Ranch, which covers nearly 30,000 acres on the island of Maui. The ranch has been owned by the Baldwin family for 6 generations.
And it started when H.P. Baldwin and a group of businessmen, he put together a group of businessmen with enough money to buy these lands from Akanali'ili. That was in 1888, now 130 years ago.
The Haleakala Ranch is a family-held corporation. There's about 100 shareholders that are all family members.
Haleakala Ranch has evolved over time. Today, lands that were once part of the ranch are now a national park. Each year, more than 1 million visitors travel through the ranch to get to the summit of Haleakala.
At one point, 9,000 acres of that roughly was actually owned. The bulk of that was owned by Haleakala Ranch, and so I think it was in the late 1920s there was an exchange, and that beautiful world-class crater area was conveyed to become a national park, one of the first parks, I think, in the system. And again, that to me speaks to the commitment and the history of land stewardship and management at Haleakala Ranch.
The landscape on Haleakala Ranch is widely varied. Drought has reduced their numbers to 1,200 cows, and the ranch team is working to build their herd back up. Some of the cattle forage in drier country near the ocean, while other parts of the herd are rotated through mountain pastures at higher elevations.
Both herds are made up of predominantly Angus, red and black Angus cattle. So the cattle themselves, the breeds are the same, but they do have a little bit of variation in them due to the environment they're in.
You know, I've been very fortunate to work with the livestock program here because what I've learned, you know, again, I come from a pure conservation background, that I don't have a grazing background, but I've realized in a short time that grazing is just a tremendous tool to manage land.
Grazing with enough animals at any one time helps us to control invasive species.
Cattle and rotational grazing do play a key role in the fight against a wide variety of invasive species, which is one of the major challenges on Maui.
We have gorse, we have pine trees, we have other ornamental trees, so we need to manage them.
Gorse being probably the worst one, just because it's something that's so spiny and quickly takes on that hard, thorny quality that it's difficult for livestock to graze on, whether it be sheep, goats, or cattle.
Gorse is a weed in Hawaii. It's native to Western Europe and the British Isles. It was brought here in the late 1800s to Hawaii, and like everything else, the genie got out of the bottle once it arrived in Hawaii. And so it has spread across Haleakala Ranch, where it now covers probably a couple of thousand acres of high quality pasture. So it's just an overwhelming problem when you just jump right into it and you start controlling it without a plan.
The plan to battle gorse includes treatment with herbicides, as well as mechanical removal to prevent younger plants from getting established. In addition, the ranch team is planting thousands of koa trees.
You know, the areas that we're standing in now were once the great koa forests of Hawaii, and it's a very treasured, beautiful figured hardwood, and they grow quickly because this is where they're from. So what we're trying to do in areas within the core of our gorse infestation is plant koa trees at a high density, with the intention of an eventual harvest 30, 40, 50 years from now. But these koa trees grow quick and they have a large canopy, and that canopy can shade out, not completely, but reduce the competitive edge that gorse has.
The team at Haleakala Ranch works with conservation partners to protect the watershed and improve all their natural resources. One major project is restoring native rainforests. In addition, the ranch is a partner in Maui Cattle Company, finishing their cattle to be sold as local beef. Raising high-quality beef, preserving open space, and sharing the story of conservation on Haleakala Ranch are core values. Each year, the ranch team hosts a variety of groups, including the Ag in the Classroom program.
I think it's a very important program that Haleakala Ranch and the rest of agriculture community gets involved with, because these kids are very disconnected from where their food comes from. And the more that we can get involved in exposing them to this, I think the better it is for them and for us as an agricultural community.
Whether hosting visitors or working with the cattle, the crew at Haleakala Ranch takes pride in carrying on Hawaii's ranching tradition and in caring for their historic land every day.
Good stewardship is something I truly believe that my forefathers embraced. What's really nice is the leadership since I retired embraces good stewardship.
In Hawaii, we use this term kuleana. To me, what it means is a professional and a personal responsibility to manage a certain way. And it's professional in that that's our job, but it's personal in that it's just something you feel that it's important to do.
The family, they have the same goals that I have. They want to see this ranch, better and better every year. We just celebrated 130 years of this ranch being founded. And they're looking forward for that 150th anniversary, for that 200th anniversary. I'm glad I'm a part of it.
Now, if you'd like to find out more about the Environmental Stewardship Award winners, visit environmentalstewardship.org. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, see how the Natural Resources Conservation Service is helping a Louisiana rancher protect and improve his land. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
At Case IH, we believe it's our job to provide you with solutions. That's why our Farmall and Maxim tractors, as well as our tools and attachments, are designed with you in mind. From mowing to baling to loading and more, we're here to help turn your to-dos into to-dones. At Case IH, we'll keep your days running smoothly with equipment that's durable, versatile, and highly efficient. No wonder farmers are more loyal to Case IH than any other brand. Visit your local dealer or go to caseih.com/livestock for more.
Say goodbye to your toughest pasture and rangeland weeds for good. Because one product offers season-long control, handles the widest spectrum of broadleaf weeds, and clears the way for increased forage with greater grazing flexibility. So you get more beef per acre at a cost that can't be beat. It's Grazon Next HL herbicide, and if it's in your pastures, plain and simple, weeds won't be.
Welcome back. In the cattle business, getting the most out of available natural resources is important to maximizing production. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, has long been committed to helping producers achieve this goal. Russell Nemitz introduces us to a Louisiana producer who is successfully mixing cattle and woodlands thanks to the help of the NRCS.
When it comes to raising cattle, the weather and the landscape in southwest Louisiana are just a little bit different.
Longleaf, like this site here, is relatively rare on this landscape and has a beautiful herbaceous grassland plant community that's really good to raise cattle on while you're growing timber as well. We started out in 1982 when we purchased 75 acres of a longleaf tract. And we thinned the timber out to the point that sunlight hit the ground, and we put a fence around it and prescribed burned it, and began to run some cattle. And from there, we learned the art and the science of running cattle in the woods.
Dave Daigle has a very unique operation. He does not focus strictly on cattle, and he does not focus strictly on forest production. He's kind of right in the middle. He's getting the best of both worlds. By doing both, he's created a very sustainable production operation where he's getting quality forest products, he's getting quality livestock being produced, and probably putting in less inputs than if he was concentrating on either one.
As a lifelong environmentalist, Dave understood his operation required a different approach to resource management, and he knew he needed a partner to help him. So he reached out to his local NRCS field office in order to build a conservation plan for his farm.
To manage correctly, I knew I needed help. You know, we fight some endangered species. You know, we need help with burning. We needed help with a prescribed grazing plan. Just everything tying it together and getting a consensus on what we need to do out there, and then executing what we do. And it's so much of it has been technical assistance, which has come from NRCS.
I met Mr. Daigle in 2009. We started out with a conservation plan. We established a really good working relationship early based on getting water and cross fences to his land units in order to really hone down a grazing plan.
The conservation plan is something we could really hang our hat on. It's concrete, it's there. We go to it, and very, very important for us to get what we need done here. Can't do it alone.
By managing all these values on his farm, he is able to increase his net production. There's very little input, but there's a very high net. And that's important in his operation because he doesn't spend all that money up front for inputs. We've used conservation practices through EQIP and the Conservation Stewardship program to enhance his farm and to give him financial ability to manage the way he needs to manage this place.
NRCS did the first conservation plan for us in about 1982 or so. And then NRCS has done subsequent ones on different tracks over the years. NRCS has come in since then and made some changes. This plan is about 11 years old on this particular track. So it's been an evolution process with NRCS to see the conservation plans get more sophisticated and take more conservation into mind on each track.
Dave is very focused on management. He investigates a lot of different avenues to get him information, and NRCS does play a role in that. So working through that conservation plan, he asks questions, but he listens to all the experts, and then he evaluates how it can work for his place.
Dave's conservation plan aims to work in concert with his unique natural environment, and over time, he's been able to improve his resources and his cattle production using fewer inputs.
Prescribed burning along with grazing is necessary to move these forests forward into a production stance. Production is not Mr. Daigle's objective. It's natural resource management, but he is able to use these cows as a management tool.
And using that plan, we're producing more beef on these sites than we were before. For a number of reasons. Number one, we're using our grass in a way that means healthier grasses, healthier prairie.
Follow natural processes and don't fight Mother Nature, don't fight God. Just mimic what he put into play. You'll work less, you'll produce more, and that's a big key, and less impact on the environment. And another thing that Dave says all the time, it's a philosophy you hear from other true conservationists, and that's leaving the land in a better shape for future generations, and he's certainly doing that. He's taking land that was either under or over managed and mimicking those natural processes, bringing back to where it could be more sustainable and leaving it in better condition than he got it.
Dave appreciates the support he's received from NRCS, not only with conservation planning, but with cost sharing that has helped him put his plan into practice. He also firmly believes it's a partnership that benefits NRCS as well.
Conservation planning, that's the roots of our agency. That's how we provide technical assistance to help people address their objectives and their problems. And over the last few decades, we were fortunate enough to also be able to provide financial assistance to help them. And so by sitting down and going through the conservation planning process, we can develop a schedule of operations to help you meet and achieve your objectives, and then come in with the tools to help you implement that plan, and those tools can be financial assistance.
The EQIP program is very, very important because it's specific to certain conservation practices that we do, like prescribed grazing or prescribed burning, brush control, exotic species, invasive species, encroachment. It helps us on those a great deal.
NRCS is a service to the local agriculture community. We provide conservation planning to improve their operations, and we can even provide money to improve their operations, and that's the most fantastic thing.
Reporting from the longleaf pine savanna of southwest Louisiana, I'm Russell Nemitz for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about how the expertise and cost-sharing programs of the NRCS could help your farm or ranch improve its productivity, just contact your local NRCS office or visit the website nrcs.usda.gov. Still ahead on Cattleman to Cattleman, could the production of biodiesel have a positive benefit for beef producers? We'll examine the complementary relationship between the two industries right after this.
No matter what job I've got to do, my John Deere 5E tractor will do it all. Whether I'm cutting, moving feed, or building a fence. Using my 5E means my work gets done faster at a price I can afford, and that works for me.
When it comes to the beef business, there's no room for gray area. The decisions being made in Washington affect the future of the beef industry, the livelihood of your fellow farmers and ranchers. Your National Cattlemen's Beef Association knows there's what benefits cattlemen and there's what doesn't. To us, it's as clear as black and white. Visit joinncba.org to learn more.
Renewable fuels can be a hot topic with farmers and ranchers, and many have strong opinions about the subject. Our next guests are here to tell us about the interesting and maybe even complementary relationships between biodiesel and beef production. We're joined by Rob Schaefer, an Illinois soybean grower and Angus cattle producer, and Alan Weber. He's an ag economist and senior advisor to the National Biodiesel Board. Gentlemen, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Rob, you and I talked on the phone several months ago, and you said, Kevin, I'd love to come on the show and talk about this. Why was that such a passion of yours?
It started, besides Illinois, we also own a farm in southwestern Kansas, and I could see a big feedlot from my farm who buys our grain, and I just was meeting with the grain buyer, building that relationship, and I was wearing a biodiesel t-shirt, and he started asking me some questions about biodiesel, and the more we talked about it, the more I could figure out there was a disconnect between the biodiesel industry and possibly the cattle industry, and wanted to explore that, being a soybean producer and a cattle producer, wanting to go ahead and talk to the cattle folks to go ahead and explain the benefits of biodiesel to the whole industry.
So let's talk about that. What are some of the benefits that we as beef producers receive or can receive from biodiesel?
Yeah, and everybody today is trying to they're trying to increase their profits and lower their lower the risk and also lower their costs. And one way to do that is through biodiesel, as far as on the animal fat side and carcass values, and we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yeah, so let's talk first of all revenue, right? You said we're all looking at ways to add a few more pennies to the top line. How can biodiesel do that?
Well, in biodiesel, when people think biodiesel, they usually think of soybean oil as a feedstock.
Yep.
Well, as I got more involved from the soybean industry into the biodiesel industry, biodiesel is made out of several different kinds of feedstocks, okay? Being animal fat. They can take the animal fats and make that, and 13% of biodiesel in the United States is made from animal tallow, which helps, increase the carcass values, which that's a big thing, and trying to hit that home with increasing carcass values and that kind of thing.
Alan, tell us a little bit more about the revenue benefits we can receive as beef producers through biodiesel.
Yeah, so Rob makes a great point in that animal fats, and thus the livestock producers, are really important to the biodiesel industry. Last year, for example, about 1.8 billion pounds of animal fats were used. Now that's all inclusive, so that's poultry fat, that's choice white grease as well, but so really important. The question we do get asked sometimes, though, is those benefits, who gets them? Does it stay on one side of the supply chain, like with the packer, or does it go all the way back to the cow-calf producer? So we looked at that economically, and what we found was, indeed, those price impacts are distributed throughout the supply chain. So, for example, in my home state of Missouri, a commercial cow-calf operator like my father, we estimate that every time that he would take a heifer or steer to the sale barn, it's probably like a $20 bill in his back pocket.
Wow. Yeah, sometimes we think about ribeyes and hamburger and don't think about some of the value of everything else that comes with that beef carcass. So we talked a little bit about the revenue side. What about the cost side? I mean, I think what many producers wonder is, does biodiesel drive feed costs higher?
Most people, soybean meal or soybean crush is driven by protein, but also you get the meal, you get the oil, and you get the hulls, and most of that, but it's driven by the protein cost now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And since protein drives, every time we crush a bushel of soybeans, we also get that oil that Rob referred to. And that co-product nature, that's what allows the benefits to go to livestock producers. And so the next question is how much, right, in terms of benefit. We worked with an economics group outside of Champaign, Illinois, by the name of Stewardship Consulting.
Okay.
And we asked the question, what would happen if the biodiesel industry domestically was half the size that it is today?
Okay.
And the conclusion is that soybean meal would be at least $20 a ton more expensive, or conversely, by growing the biodiesel industry, we've actually made feed costs less for livestock producers. And stepping back and looking at that from a national perspective, the beef industry in the U.S. probably paid at least $40 million less last year because of biodiesel.
Wow, that's surprising. I wouldn't have anticipated myself. So I'm following you on the economics in terms of improving revenue and managing costs, but you also mentioned mitigating risk. Alan, tell us how biodiesel actually helps mitigate risk.
And it's a great question, and I think whenever Rob and I are out talking with livestock producers, the feed cost issue makes sense to them. A lot of them probably haven't thought about necessarily how much animal fats are being used. But once we explain it, the light bulb kind of goes off. But almost nobody has thought of the fact that every time we make a gallon of biodiesel, we have a co-product called glycerin.
Okay.
And if the biodiesel producer further refines that glycerin into technical or pharmaceutical grade glycerin, there are actually literally hundreds of uses. If you go home tonight, look in your bathroom at soaps or shampoos, you might find glycerin as an ingredient.
Wow.
But if we don't refine that, you can use it as an energy source in feed rations.
I did not know that.
So it's listed with AFCO in the official publication.
Huh.
So legal feed ingredient to be used. And it's one way, if energy prices get higher, energy being like corn prices get higher, it provides another possibility to be used.
Rob, one last question for you. What would you like to share with your fellow cattlemen?
Just the fact that biodiesel helps their bottom line. It creates United States jobs. It helps taxes. It's a win-win for both the cattle industry, the soybean guy. It's a win-win for the United States, actually, and also especially to cattlemen across the country.
That's fantastic. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Very educational for me, and I'm sure all of our viewers as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The National Biodiesel Board maintains the largest library of biodiesel information in the U.S. You can find answers to many of your questions about biodiesel at their official website, and that's biodiesel.org. Still ahead, it's time for a visit with our good friend Baxter Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
When the field is your office, you never get tired of going to work. Cut, rake, bale, repeat. New Holland offers the power and versatility to get through the day. From small squares to large squares and everything in between, New Holland has you covered. Visit your local dealer today to find out more. New Holland, equipped for a new world.
We know you're up before the dawn because the cattle rise before the sun. And you spend long hours in the saddle because the herd isn't always over the next rise. And you care for the land because you know it takes care of your family. And we know you do great work. And it's time to tell that story to the marketplace. IMI Global is here to help you do just that. Ladies and gentlemen and followers of cowboy humor, I have carved another book from my funny bone, guaranteed to tickle your humerus. Sorry. The title is Scrambled Wisdom. Almost isn't is it? Which almost makes sense. It's only $19.95 plus shipping. Call 800-654-2550 or online at BaxterBlack.com. Here's a joke. What did he get on his IQ test? Drool. The goose population is on the rise, even to the point that some city dwellers are complaining of goose detritus and effluvia. But to wheat farmers on the flyway, the problem is less one of sanitation and more one of production, because the geese eat the newly sprouted wheat. Keith farms in north central Oklahoma. Geese have been regular squatters in his wheat fields for years, but the goose population explosion is taking its toll on his crop and his patience. Last season, some of his city friends asked to hunt pheasant on his place. They were welcome. Of course, Keith took them to the backside of his farm where he'd left some cover and dropped them off. When he picked him up later in the afternoon, he drove by his wheat fields. New growth was peaking up and adding unnatural green patches to the brown winter landscape. He also noted 500,000 geese had flown in and set up camp, and they were busily plucking the sprouts. "Boys," he said to his three Boone and Crockett buddies, "climb in the back and I'll take you for a goose run." Well, they did. Keith got on the inside of the hot wire, put it in four-wheel drive, started down the edge of the field, and he was doing 50 miles an hour when he flew through the flurry of geese. The sky was black with them, the raucous honking was deafening, and suddenly, in the blink of an eye, he was clear of the geese, although it was impossible to see out of the windshield. Apparently, in an effort to lighten their load, the geese had performed a cloacal evacuation as they sailed over the cab. They looked like they had been in an oatmeal storm, maybe a cream of wheat drive-by creaming, or had stepped on a butterscotch mine. Goose droppings splattered their Eddie Bowers, smeared their Land's End, coated their Cabela's, lambasted their LL Beans, splattered, smeared, blinded, bluffed, and buffeted them as the blizzard of geese had flown over at ground zero. Their spokesman removed his Smith & Wesson sunglasses, revealing the only bare skin on his face. He looked like a pallid raccoon. "They shot first," he said. "We didn't have a chance." This is Baxter Black. From out there.
Thanks, Baxter. That sounds like a hunt those guys will never forget. We're back right after this. Stay with us.
If you're looking for outstanding genetics that will work for you, then make plans now to be at the 2018 CK Cattle Headquarters Sale on October 26th in Hope Hall, Alabama. CK Cattle is a 3-generation operation offering the best in Angus, Key Angus, and Sim Angus bulls and females, backed by a family that cares about their customers.
The customer is the most important thing in our operation. You know, the CK guarantee is pretty simple. I mean, we live by the golden rule. We want to treat you like you want to be treated. If you have a problem with your bull, we're going to back them.
Don't miss their 2018 sale offering more than 100 solid 2-year-old bulls and 100 females, including 30 tiger-striped F1 Brayford heifers. It all happens Friday, October 26th. Learn more at the website ckcattle.com.
If you're in the cattle business, you need to be in New Orleans from January 30th through February 1st. Those are the dates for the annual Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show. Cattleman and Cattleman reporter Matt Fleck has a closer look at what to expect at this fun and informative event.
New Orleans is the place to be at the end of January for the Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba Trade Show. Thousands of cattlemen and women will be there to make decisions that will help shape the future of the beef industry.
It's really important for someone that's never been to a cattle industry convention to show up and be a part of the process. We do take care of business opportunities there with our policy committees and checkoff committees, so it's important to participate and be a part of the industry and formulate where we go forward into the future.
Another highlight is the Ncba Trade Show, which is the largest in the industry and features more than 300 exhibitors. Attendees will also have the opportunity to see live demonstrations and cutting-edge educational sessions right on the show floor.
And it's going to be between 6 and 7 acres, and so you can just spend hours and hours going through the trade show and seeing what the most newest and best up-to-date products there are for the cattle industry. So a person, not only for the business part of the meeting, but our trade show, come down and see it, and you can just spend to your heart's desire.
Producer education is another important component of the annual convention. Cattlemen's College offers valuable cutting-edge education that can help generate higher returns for any beef cattle operation.
I think Cattlemen's College at the Cattle Industry Convention is second to none. The amount of venues there and different speakers, it's unparalleled. And so you can come and get as much information on a multitude of different subjects and take that back home and put it to use in your own operation.
Kevin Kester says he thinks everyone in the industry, from pasture to plate, needs to make it to the Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba Trade Show. He calls it a one-of-a-kind opportunity to network, create policy for the industry, and have some fun.
Boy, I tell you, if you have 10,000 people in one spot for several days, you can't help but meet new people and make those business-to-business relationships also. So it's really important, the friends and business relationships I've developed over the years, it'll last for a lifetime.
I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Convention registration is open, so don't wait. Sign up today. The 2019 convention runs from January 30th through February 1st. Go to ncba.org for all the details on how to register for this can't-miss event. Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.